Yeah, you can also study for free in the US by covering your tuition with by working on campus and earning money to cover your living expenses and your tuition. And that's what we're going to be discussing in this video. I'm going to be speaking to Yemi about this, and that's something that he did while he was in school. So how he pulled it off and what things you need to know. And I mean, I will let him speak to everything. So don't let me just put words into his mouth. I know that's something that he did. And if you follow us through this video, that's what you're going to learn. Say you don't have full scholarship, or you can't get a student loan for some reason, or you just think you don't want to take up any student loan, then this is one of the ways you can fund your education. And yeah, Yemi, welcome to this show today.
Yeah, thanks, Ahmed. Yeah, I'm happy to share my experience and also looking forward to also learning from you too.
Yeah, let's go. First things first, how much of your tuition or living expenses were you able to cover through on-campus jobs while you were in school?
Yeah, I'll say typically. So I'm trying to just take some few steps back now to just recall. Yeah, it's been a while. So basically, rent then would be like because if you rent an apartment within the student environment, right, within the university campus, say you pay like 1,200 or like 1,300
US dollars a month
US dollars a month,
or
right?
for a semester?
Typically a month, like a
A
month.
month. Yeah.
So, and again, yeah, if you get a student job on campus, you basically get like a monthly stipend of say like 1,000, right? Every 2 weeks. I think it's 1,000 every 2 weeks, right? Because the paycheck comes every 2 weeks. So I
So
would
you're
say,
paying rent of like that's roughly 15K,
yep, yeah.
like let's
So
say 14,000. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
14.
basically, if you get a student job, you should be able to take care of your housing, right? And which is essentially like the major part of your living expense, right? So yeah, I would
So if you were to estimate how much in total would you say you were able to cover through on-campus job, not just your living expenses, if there was a part of it that you also use for tuition or any other fees, like
yeah.
how much
Oh,
were
okay.
you able to make from that?
Yeah, interesting. So I would say so if you there are I think maybe I should just put some like talk about more or less like create context around it, right? Because student job can be in two categories, right? There are student job without tuition remission. There are student job that comes with tuition remission. So aside the fact that you're getting stipend, there are student jobs that you should look out for that comes with tuition remission. So what that means, what the big English means is that they take care of your tuition. So that money
Okay.
does not come to your pocket.
So
So they
it's
take that
work
burden off
to
you.
pay tuition, right? So
Yeah,
you're working
it's
and they're covering your tuition. Okay.
absolutely. So it takes care of your tuition. Then they still give you a stipend of about $1,000
So you
thereabout.
did both while you were in school.
Yeah, yeah, I did.
So how
I
are you
did.
able to pull it through? How are you able to pull it off, considering that you still had to go to classes and you had to study for
I mean,
midterms, exams? Like, how did you
so
pull it off? Yeah.
I mean, it's just like getting like a two-in-one package, right? It's not like you are doing two different jobs, right? So the
Okay.
way it is like the same job that you get, the same student job that you are doing is taking care of the school fees and is giving you stipend at the same time.
Oh, got it. That
Right?
makes
So it's
sense
a
then.
tuition remission. So, and you see, sometimes student you might not know, like if you go to like the student job portal, and all of that, you might not easily know. Like, so you need to be aware. You need to be armed with that information to look out for jobs, student job that comes with tuition remission, and they are mostly like graduate assistantship role, right? And specific roles, like I think it will be clearly stipulated, like this is a tuition remission role, right? The requirements might be a bit higher than those ones that don't come with tuition remission. So essentially, of course, I think like in my first year MBA, I think towards the later end of my first year, I actually did student job that were not with tuition remission, right? But then I was covered by another kind of funding, like fellowship, a scholarship and all of that. But in my second year, I was able to like get a student job that comes with tuition remission, right? So you are more accountable. It might be more work, like it might be more standardized, or maybe you might be working with a professor, or you might be working with an organization. But the main thing, the main objective for you as a student, or for me back then, was take care of my school fees and get some stipend, right? So the stipend would just be something, the paycheck comes once in 2 weeks, then at the end of the month, you're able to like take care of rent and all
Yeah,
of that. So,
absolutely. That makes sense.
yeah,
I was going to ask you that question anyway, but you already have that covered. So I think that the next question that I think people might be interested in knowing is like, are these generally available to international students? And at what point did you find out about this opportunity? Is this something like you can apply for once you start applying for admission, or you have to wait, get the admission, get
mhm,
travel all the way to the
yeah,
US for start classes before you start applying for this kind of result? I mean, how like just share some some
yeah, yeah.
information around that. Yeah.
Good question, Ahmed. I think it all depends, right? So sometimes I'm aware like some schools do offer those positions as you're getting your admission offer, right? So it comes with that benefit. Hey, you have this student job because with tuition remission. Some
Okay.
don't, right? I recall that in my case, with my admission offer, I got a student job, like a teaching assistantship role that comes with tuition remission, that kind of a thing.
Okay.
And what was so interesting in my case was at the end of the day, I didn't go for that opportunity. Like I didn't go for that particular role. I opted out because I got something much more flexible. I got something that I felt was better than doing the teaching thing. I got something that was more project oriented, much more business oriented, and all of that. So to answer your question, it's possible. I think that for some schools, you might have to take that bold step or take that leap, get the admission. Maybe you come in for your first year, then you start applying for those jobs. Because again, it's a calendar, right? Like it's possible that those jobs are not even open as at when you were applying, right? So the best some schools might tell you is just look out, be on the lookout. They might give you the relevant website, the links, that you need to keep checking, time to time.
So if you
Most,
don't know, reach out to maybe the
yeah,
admission
yeah,
officers,
that's the
ask
best thing.
them
Reach
questions
out.
like, I'm looking for this kind of opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
right.
What are
So
the resources available? Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that once you begin to negotiate your offer, terms of admission and all of that, your financial aid, ultimately what you're trying to do is to make sure like you are all covered, right? So because again, as an international student, of course, the finance is really very important. You want to be sure like how much of this tuition do I have personally? What is my
Yeah.
personal funds or savings
Yeah.
like? How much do
Yeah.
I need, right?
Yeah.
You also need to budget for unforeseen, right? Like unforeseen
Circumstances.
expenses and
Yeah.
all of that. So from that offer, you know clearly, like, hey, I'm going to be in this program for 2 years. What I
Yeah.
have is covering for just a year. I need to figure out what will happen for my second year, right? So, and you start looking at those opportunities. So it's at that point, like you said, to your point, you start talking to the school, talking to the admission team, like what opportunities are available for the second year. How do I keep in touch? How do I get access to informations? Like when are those job openings coming through and all of that? So, and typically, I think for most schools, like they already know, like international students need these opportunities. So they harm you with those information, send those links to you so that you can start applying as soon as those roles are coming out.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for sharing that. So I don't know whether you're able to share this, but
Yeah.
what kind of on-campus job specifically did you take up? Like,
Hmm.
what's the nature of the work like? Are they
Yeah.
they just those kind of work that require your intellectual capabilities or
Mhm.
physical capabilities, and like what are the kind of work
Yeah,
that you
so
took up? Yeah.
typically the common one mostly are teaching assistantship.
Okay.
So the idea, think about a scenario where you are more or less like supporting a professor to administer a class, right? So maybe you take undergraduates, if you are in a master's program or a postgraduate program, you are supporting conducting exams, taking seminar
Grading.
workshop, reading and all of that.
Okay.
So that might be part. But okay, so for me, like I said, I got that kind of opportunity, which of course, if that's all you get, like you just have to make do with what you have. But along the line, I got to explore other opportunities, right? I was looking for opportunities like outside of academics, outside of classes, right? Because the interesting thing is that there are other opportunities. Like, in fact, later down the line, I got colleagues, like classmates, that got some interesting jobs like music, like some fun stuff like entertainment and some of those things have tuition remission. Like it's so surprising, right? Some
Yeah.
sporting
So yeah.
events, right? Organizing sporting event for schools. It might even be as interesting as maybe like clerical staff or maybe like supporting the dean or most some kind of administrative roles. that requires some level of responsibility, right? Like you're basically going to be tapping into some of the experiences you have. They are mostly giving you some of those roles based on the experiences you have, right? Because of course they're not going to be teaching you how to administer some of those things, right? So, but talking about the role I was able to do during my program specifically was it was more or less like a marketing role,
Yeah.
right? So it was like an NGO, yeah, some sort of like NGO,
Owned by
but
the school or what?
no, owned by a department in the school,
Okay.
right? So it's some faculty trying to like run some NGO that has to do with food
Okay.
systems, environmental sustainability, and all of that.
Okay.
So they have some grants going on, right? They have some grants going on. They are looking to like expand that program across the country. So they were looking for MBAs, marketing, specialists and all of that. Then also at the same time, someone to engage undergrads. They're looking to recruit as many interns as
I
possible,
built a pipeline of
build the pipeline, right?
line
Set the
of yeah.
foundation because
Oh
it's
yeah.
going to be something. It's going to be a program that they will expand across the country. It will be a national. It will be national scope, so to speak. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess I was fortunate at that time that that program was going to expand. Then at the same time, they are trying to like recruit marketing experts, consultants, MBAs, and all of that. So that kind of program, because of the nature of that kind of program, they were willing to like do tuition remission, like give the students as much support as they needed, right? So, and those kind of opportunities are there, right? You just need to be able to, you need to be able to get that information, right? So, talk to the admission team, talk to your faculty, like just let them know, like, this is what you need. Like, they are there, like, they need those positions, they need people to, they need to fill those positions, right? So,
Yeah.
and if you have that experience, why not?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's a lot you've shared there because I had questions around whether you have specific role recommendation for international students or even first year students, but you covered some of them already in your response to my last question. I think I also wanted to ask you whether there were other benefits aside the
Yeah, yeah,
tuition. You already mentioned that covers tuition, covered they
they
also
were.
give up stipends.
So
So I okay.
there are other benefits like
Okay.
medical insurance.
Oh,
Yeah, you get your medical insurance cover. Health insurance is something like you don't want to
it,
joke with
it's a
here,
big
right?
deal. Yeah.
So it's more or less like getting a full
Like a
time
full-time job, right?
right? So it's just like you are doing 20 hours. Like, they know
Yeah,
like the student, the maximum you can put in is a 20 hour, right? So it makes sense. You have your health insurance. If you have a family, it's also taken care of, right? So
oh, amazing.
you pay tax, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just a way of like you're integrating yourself into the system.
yeah. I mean,
It's a very good way.
that's actually a perfect segue to my next question, which is how did you manage taxes and other deductions as a student employee? I
Mhm.
know you definitely need to maybe sign up for your social security number,
Yeah,
then you start
yeah.
filing taxes. Like, how did you go about that? I know people that did on-campus job.
Mhm.
For some reason, I thought the employers were supposed to make the deductions, but for some reason they were owing taxes at the end of the financial year. So, I mean, just share whatever
Interesting.
you can
Yeah,
share
I
about
think
that.
so. For me, I was already harmed with that experience, so to speak, or that exposure to like, hey, don't joke with taxes here, right?
Yeah,
So as soon as you start earning money, actually once it's coming from government, it's not an undercover job like something that you're doing in the hidden, right? So you must be conversant that you have to pay your taxes. You have to, even if you don't have, even if you are going to pay $0 at the end of the day,
you
you
still have
must
to
pay.
file.
You have to
Yeah,
file. So I think that tax education, like financial education, is really very important, and it's really interesting that you are bringing this up. It's also one of those things like those cultural changes. Like if you're an international student, you are coming, you have to be aware. It's
yeah,
not something you just say, well, if you like. It's something you have to be intentional about because it might make you and it might mar you. So in my case, the taxes are deducted from source, right? It's just like so you get your pay less tax, right? So and that's why when you ask me of amount, I'm always careful to say like 1,000 thereabout and all of that because taxes will usually be removed. State tax
yeah,
and state tax will vary, right? 5%,
yeah.
6%. So it will be removed. The interesting thing is, at the end of the year, the system is organized to the point that they help you to do your tax filing, so to speak. So they have like a software application, they have a firm, like a third party firm they're working with. Your W-2 form is available on your portal. So that it's the same way you go online to your Canvas and pull your academic report and all of that. You have a place where you could go pull your W-2, right? Then you just reach out to the third party tax firm that is running it. Then you just, everything is just easy because again, we are not talking about a large amount of money here, right? So like it's really pretty straightforward. You just, one other thing I think I did was to go for those. There were some seminars, like webinars, like at the beginning of the second
Yeah,
semester, that they talk about taxes, why you should file and all of that. So it's always important to pay attention to those things. You might feel like I don't need that information right now, but it's better to be over prepared than not to be prepared at all and to be caught in the web. So for me, filing it just came easy because the tax document is already there. I just need to pull it, then just submit. And I
yeah,
think most times you get like a refund, right? You get refund because
yeah.
mostly, if you look at the amount of money coming in at the end of the day, like they will need to still refund you, like, hey,
Some amount of money.
you're a
Yeah,
student, right?
paid more than, yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
paid more than we should
yeah,
be
you pay
taking
more
from
than
you. So this is the balance.
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if your institution is not providing any resources around that, at
Mm-hmm.
least they'll provide you with the W-2 form and their third party applications like TurboTax and what's it called? Is it, I can't remember, is it Bamboo HR or
Yeah.
something? I can't remember their names that can help you to also file your taxes. And yeah. So I think I have a couple more questions for you before we go. And before I go ahead, whoever is watching right now, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please, I want you to subscribe, and so that you don't miss information or think really helpful discussions like this from us in the future. So one thing that everyone might be wondering, at least that was something that I considered, and one of the main reasons I didn't take up an on-campus job. I did take up for one semester, but not beyond that one semester. Is balancing your studies
Mm.
and the work, right? It can be challenging even with classes alone, just doing your homework, group assignments, projects, midterms, preparing for your exam. And if you have extracurricular activities like, I mean, I used to play soccer like every day back then in school. So how do you balance all of these? Do you have to make some trade-off decisions like,
Mm.
okay, this is my life now, no more movies, no more
Yeah.
playing sports. I just have to focus on work and school. So how did you manage the time
Yeah.
efficiently? Yeah.
Good question, Ahmed. Like, I think, I mean, this is a personal advice. I would say, like, I wouldn't advise someone to take up a student job or take any form of job at the very first semester as much as possible. I think your first 3, 4 months, like that fall semester when you're coming in, that's the time you need to transition, like, take your time, integrate into the system, get to even understand, okay, what's going on here, what's the
Yeah.
explanation, get settled, right? I mean, that is where you really need to be prepared. Like, that is the time you're going to spend probably the greatest amount of your personal fund, right? Because at that time, you need to really lay a very solid foundation, right? And why I'm saying this is because if you're going to do any trade off or, work life balance, it's going to be dependent on how well you're able to lay this foundation. Right? Otherwise, you just keep jumping pillar to post at the end of the day, right? And it's a very short time. It's a 2 year
Yeah.
program or maybe a 1 year program if it's a master's program. So for me, that very first fall semester, like I was just giving it my best, like trying to have the best result as possible. Like, and why the strategy was that I knew that by second year I'm going to be doing all sort of things. Like, I would just be everywhere, right? So I just wanted to like lay that robust foundation, build that network, get the support of friends, like academically, like be there, right? So that by the time I'm trying to like do some trade off and do some other things, like what's the worst that could happen, that kind of a thing. So yeah, and to your point, I hope that makes sense. Like, for me, that's a strategy. Like, the first semester, settle down, build
Settle
a
down.
solid foundation. Don't try to do any extracurricular or any job as much as possible, right? Then once you're moving out from the first semester or whatever, then you can now start looking at other opportunities. The other thing I did, even in my second semester of first year, I wasn't really doing the 20 hours, right? So for me, what I do is that sometimes I do like 4 hours a week, right?
Okay.
Sometimes I do six, right? So I just try to like look at my calendar, right? I think it was at that point I started blocking out my calendar. I think I use it the most. I mean, maybe now that I'm working now, maybe like I will say, okay. But then back in school, I had to like strategically sit down and look at my calendar and say, okay, how many classes do I have? What do I want to do at this XYZ time? Right? So I have 3 hours there, I have 4 hours. I block everything out.
Every minute is planned for.
Every minute is planned for. Because interestingly, you are paid per hour, right? So it really
Yeah,
makes sense. So I'm like, okay, if I put in these 4 hours, I know this is how much. If I use
I'm
this
going
hour
to
in
earn.
class, this is how much. This is what I'm trading off, right? So
Yeah.
that was what I did. I wasn't so greedy and I didn't push myself so much. So the 20 hours didn't come easy. So I just took it like bit by bit, 4 hours, 6 hours. Then in my second year, I think one other strategy that work and I believe should work for almost everyone is that look for a role that look for a job that most likely you can do for free. Like something that really so resonates with you.
Like, what do you mean by that? You mean work that's like a hobby for you that it doesn't feel
What
like work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Something like, so I was talking about the role that I did, right? It came as a challenge at the beginning, right? Because of course I was working with people I was getting to meet like newly and all of that. But the core of the job was analytics, like marketing analytics, like, so those kind of stuff I was already familiar with. Creative work environment, right? I could bring in innovation, like design, like a campaign and all of that. So those are stuff like I could sit down on my own and just brainstorm and just come up with different kind of ideas. So it wasn't so difficult, right? Then that's one strategy. The other one is maybe you might want to even look for a remote position, like a role that you don't have to be physically there, right? So what we do is that we have meetings with the board of directors, we have meetings with students, we have meetings with external vendors and agencies, right? Again, you block out those times, make sure they're not clashing with my classes. Because again, don't forget that as an international student, you have to be in class, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's important. You don't really want to be missing classes, and at the same time, you want to fulfill your 20 hours. So look for a role that you are passionate about, something that you really like. Look for a role, maybe hybrid or remote, something you really enjoy doing. Then balance it out. You don't necessarily have to do the whole 20 hours. You might just take it bit by bit. And that's why your income might vary, right? Because it's the amount of hours you clock in or you put in that you get. But ultimately, you are getting the work experience that you desire, right? And at the end of the day, you are getting some form of stipend. So that way, yeah, hopefully it works out.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for sharing that. And that perfectly takes me to my last question for you is like, did working on campus open up any like unexpected opportunities for you, like mentorship, networking, and obviously you just mentioned like gaining work experience. So are there any other opportunities that this opened up for you?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think that for me, it's upskilling is one thing, right? It's an opportunity to upskill. It's an opportunity to make genuine mistakes. It's an opportunity to fail and fail fast, right? You can hide under that umbrella of I'm a student, right?
It's learning.
right,
Mhm.
I'm just learning, right? I'm just trying this out, right? If anyone wants to complain, you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a student. I'm just a first year student or a second year student or something like that, and you use that opportunity to just build skills, build courage, try a lot of things. Again, I think it was at that point I was using different kind of tools. Like I have known those tools, but I wasn't that familiar as such, right? So I was using tools like Asana big time, right? To plan, to delegate, to do all of that. So starting my first job and seeing that those tools are really, I mean, the experience came in very handy, right? And you're like, oh, I use these tools, I've used this tool to do X, Y, and Z. And it
Yeah.
will stop. Even you'll be amazed at how you are able to like transfer those values, those skills into what you are currently doing. I mean, they look so invaluable, like at the initial, you just feel like, okay, but it will surprise you how much of that experience or value that you are bringing in. Then again, the mere fact that you have worked with people, I think one of the biggest skills that you can learn is working with people, right? Like it's a big soft skill. Like
And
people
it's a
really don't.
different climb, different
Mhm.
culture.
Absolutely.
And though before you get into the corporate world, it might be like a great opportunity for you to learn what the work environment looks like here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, like hiring managers, recruiters. they have much more confidence in someone that has worked within a team.
Yeah.
Like you've worked in this environment, you've interacted with people, you know worked on projects, maybe not necessarily very big or whatever, but there's a confidence that just reinforces like, okay, I worked in this environment, I was there for 3 months, I was there for 6 months, and this is what I did. Nobody is trying to say the experience you are bringing from Africa or from Nigeria is not good, but again, working in a team, right? Leading and working in a team, working with people, people management, those are great skills, right? So because you're going to be working with people, whether as an engineer, whether as a product manager, whatever you are, people are going to be like your greatest assets. That opportunity of internship or student job gives you that, it just gives you that platform. And once you take it on, you benefit, right? You get stipend, you learn, you work with people, you upskill. And again, to your point, mentorship, right? Some of the bosses some of the people you are working with, your supervisors, your managers, they will become your mentors, right? Like you have access to them. You can say, okay, I've worked with this professor, I've worked with this person, I've worked with this CEO and all of that. Even
Mm.
if you really did not, it's not really about the length of time that you used to work with them now, right? But the fact that you've had engagement, you've worked on the same team and all of that, is easier, it's better for you, right? It makes it more easier for you than someone that did not do that at all. You're not looking for a referral, you're looking for a reference, right? So those people becomes like reference point for you as you take on new roles.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. This has been quite interesting for me. Learned a lot, even though I knew some of this story, but not as in depth as this. And I hope anyone who's watching right now has learned a few things that you don't need to limit yourself first. Like, first thing is, you don't need to limit yourself to looking for scholarships. If you're looking
Yeah.
for a way to fund your education in the US, there are several other options like taking up student loans. If you're not comfortable taking student loans, or you are not qualified for a student loan, the other option is take up a job on campus. The on-campus jobs can help you pay your tuition, give you even some stipend to cover your living expenses, health insurance, like you've heard from Yemi in his own case. So make this even when you have scholarship, these are still opportunities you can go after, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to only look for them if you don't have scholarship. If you have scholarship, still go after them. If you took loan, go after them. Maybe then you start paying back your student loan, depending on the conditions of the funding or the compensation the institution is giving you. So if you're watching this, I hope you've learned one or two things today that put it at the back of your mind. Study and working is possible. You can do it. We have we have a living testimony here who's gone through that process. Yeah, like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification button, and share with somebody if you think they'll be they can benefit from this also. And we'll be back with another insightful video. And until that next time, bye bye from me.
All right. Bye bye. See you again next
See
time.
ya.